because Master Sergeant Grisham knew the law, and the cop says, I don't need a law. They don't care about a law. You scared them. Well, hell, a lot of these communists in this country are scared by men and women and families. I mean, they're scared by liberty. They're scared by freedom. Do I have to comport with all of their anti-gun fervor where they get scared to death to see a citizen with a gun? You'll never convince these anti-gun people. 49% drop in violent crime in the last 20 years. The FBI's own statistics that we're putting on screen right now. And they still don't care. They want my guns, and they say collectively that I am guilty for Sandy Hook when it's obviously some psychiatric victim who stole guns illegally. It's incredible. And all over the country, people are getting arrested for carrying firearms legally, including in rural areas. Many years ago, 6, 7 years ago, at our ranch in East Texas, was walking from one piece of our property down the road to another in the middle of nowhere in East Texas. I'm talking 10 miles to a gas station. And the cops pulled over and got in my face and said, where are you going? What are you doing? Are you poaching? And it's this idea that gun owners are somehow bad. And this isn't California. This isn't New York City. This is in the middle of nowhere, outside of Temple, Texas, and we are joined now via video Skype from his car. He was just giving blood to the victims of the huge explosion there at the fertilizer plant, so he's just left the hospital there. Army Master Sergeant C.J. Grisham, and he joins us right now. His video obviously has been seen millions of times on TV and on YouTube, and this is what everybody should do. Carry a camera, show what's happening. And I've said, carry not just a camera, but go out and do the open carries, because we show everybody we still have this right. If you don't exercise it, you lose it. Why would you be scared of someone with a gun openly in the middle of the country? You should be scared of criminals that are out there robbing. And we see the countless videos of people with guns coming into places to rob people, and citizens with concealed carries actually take them out. So Army Master Sergeant joins us. He's going to take legal action right now. Last time I checked, hasn't gotten his guns back. We'll find out if that's changed, but this affects every gun owner, and if they can take the Second Amendment, they can take it all. Master Sergeant C.J. Grisham, thank you so much for coming on the broadcast, and here you are having to defend the Second Amendment in America.
And Alex, it's not just the Second Amendment. We're talking about the Fourth and the Fifth as well. But obviously it started with a violation of my Second Amendment rights and then kind of carried over into the Fourth and Fifth once I was illegally disarmed and illegally arrested. It's a shame that it's happening here in Texas, because that's not something that people think happens here. I mean, I've heard from people across the country saying, you know, I was about to move from Connecticut because of these new laws to Texas, but I'm not so sure now. And people from Colorado saying the same thing. So it is important that, I mean, for the most part, Texas is a very pro-gun state. The problem is we've got these singular police officers out there that have these power trips, and that's really what it is. I don't think this is a Second Amendment issue so much as it is a power trip kind of issue.
For those that don't know, you said that right before you turn the camera on out there with your, well, you tell the whole story. Tell us what happened before, during, and now after, and where this case is going.
Yeah, so my son and I are out on a 10-mile hike. He planned the course. We intentionally planned it in a rural area because first we can start and stop at the house. We live in the country, and because of the feral hogs and things, he knew I was going to be carrying a rifle. So you know, we didn't go anywhere where there's a lot of hikers. We just tried to use backcountry roads. Sure,
that's your right. I mean, out there, and of course, I live out in the country, close to where you're at. I mean, it's just infested with cougars and hogs.
Yeah, absolutely. And about 5 miles into the hike, I hear someone asking me to stop, and I turn around, and there's a police officer's getting out of his car. Now the lights are not on. He doesn't have his gun drawn. He approaches me very casually, and he asks us what we're doing. And again, it was a very casual request. You know, what are you guys out here doing? And I told him that we were doing a hike for my son's merit badge. And then he looks at my rifle and he says, what are you doing with the rifle? And as I'm answering, because I told him, I said, well, does it matter? Am I breaking the law? Because I know I don't have to answer any questions if I'm not suspected of a crime. And at that point, he grabbed my rifle, and that's just not something you do to anybody, much less a combat veteran or a soldier. And when he grabbed my rifle, my instinct was to retrieve it. And, I took a step back. I mean, keep in mind, the rifle was attached to me anyway. And so once he grabbed my rifle and I grabbed it back and stepped back, I said, "What do you think you're doing? You're not going to disarm me." And at that point, he pulled his pistol on me. And I realized this can get ugly and in front of my son, or, I can try and de-escalate the situation. So he told me to get my hands off the gun and move over towards his car. I did just that. I put my hands, away from the gun and moved towards the front of his car. As I approached his car from behind, he slammed me down into the hood of his car. And that's when I realized and remembered that we have this camera, which at the time I only had the camera because it's a part of his hiking merit badge requirement that he document these hikes. And so that's why we had brought it. And I'm so glad that I did, because once he threw me on the car, I remembered, hey, I've got this camera, and I turned it on. And then, of course, the rest you can see in the video.
Man, I tell you, I had about 12 years ago a carpet cleaner place at my house, and there was a gun case on the wall. And the guy ran off because he was from New York and thought guns were illegal and started calling the police on me. But luckily, they understood it was just, a Fruit Loop and didn't come. But it became a whole issue. And they have these billboards all over the country saying, "Report illegal guns," that show an image of a revolver. And now all these weirdos call the police, even if they're in your house, or see all the time it's in the news where a guy's loading a deer rifle in the back of his truck or car to go deer hunting or the shooting range, and the cops get called. And it's just so crazy that the cop says, well, if people get scared, we take your guns. Doesn't matter what the Bill of Rights says. Doesn't matter if the country was founded when the Redcoats came 200 plus years ago tomorrow to take the guns at Lexington and Concord. They feel threatened. And so that trumps common law, Bill of Rights, Constitution, that is the rules and regulations that govern these police. I mean, what can you say about that? And then what happened once you were in the police car? Because what happened after the tape is turned off?
So after the tape is turned off, I tell my son that, hey, these guys are going to take you home. You do not have to answer any of their questions. I made that very clear. I said, do you understand? You do not have to answer any of their questions. All the officers heard that. My son heard that. He says, okay, and he's obviously very distraught. What I learned later was that my son, when we got to the house, because I told him, don't say a word until mom's there. Mom will answer any questions that he's got. So they pull up into the house, and my son didn't say a word the whole way. And he says, I know your dad told you not to answer any questions, but I need some information. And he starts asking him questions about, just name, age, birth date, eye color, those kinds of things. And he doesn't answer. He keeps quiet. And the officer says, look, you're not getting out of this car until you answer my questions.
Unbelievable.
And that scared my son. And so, he answered all the questions. And then the officer opened the door, let him get out, took him up to the door, explained to my wife that I was in jail for resisting arrest, and I think rudely displaying a firearm. And it wasn't until the officer left that my son told my wife what had happened either, because, again, he was afraid that, the officer might do something if he said it. But when I was in the police car, I didn't say a word. It's interesting because in the back of this car, he had a little sticker on the plexiglass window in front of me, and it says, "We answer to no one but God." And I said, "You're going to have a lot of explaining to do."